Penn State Wrestling has a few starting spots up for grabs in next season's lineup, and with the amount of depth that they have, there isn't a wrong choice for Cael Sanderson.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day, the #1 Penn State sports podcast out there. My name is Zach Sako, and I am your host of the show. This is an early lineup preview, making some predictions as well, as there are a few starting spots in the lineup for next season that are up for grabs. Penn State Cael Sanderson cannot make an incorrect decision with any of them because of the depth that they have. So we're going to talk about the contested spots first and then go through the other weight classes in the lineup that offer a little more certainty. Plus, looking back on Cael Sanderson's achievements, as it was 16 years ago from the day before in 2009 when Penn State made Cale their head coach. Also, happy Easter to each and every one of you who celebrates. Let's get into the predictions. If you got predictions, let me know down in the comments section. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer in future podcasts, let me know as well. So starting with the contested weight classes, everyone for the most part will know which ones I'm talking about. 133, 141, 184. 184 is in there, but they got Rocco Welsh. 197 as well. And there's heavyweight too, but that one's not really so much of a contest. I want to begin with 133 because Penn State brings in Masanosuke Ono. Braden Davis is already there. Aaron Nagao is still in the room. And the transfer portal, for what it's worth, is still open. So changes could happen at any point in time. We'll react to them accordingly. But right now we're going off of what Penn State has in the mat room. And at 133, it is a logjam. And do we even want to throw Marcus Blaze into the fold here too, as he's going to be wrestling at the U.S. Open, which is the equivalent at 61 kilos, which is the equivalent of 134 pounds. So Blaze could certainly make that weight cut and wrestle at 133 if he had to, if Penn State wanted him to, going into next season. I really think this is a battle. This 133 battle is between Ono, Davis, and Nagao. Ono, world champion, former world champion for Japan. He comes in with one of the loftiest pedigrees. We're talking about, Penn State brings in the top national recruits. Penn State's bringing in the top international recruits here in Ono. This is someone that I believe is almost an instant national title contender. The drawback, the concern about Ono is he's never wrestled folk style before. He's a freestyle champion. But you don't become a freestyle champion by accident. I've said that before. I'm going to continue to say that again. Ono should come in, should be able to wrestle and be the starter right away at 133. However, if things don't go according to plan, you have plenty of depth, which is why Cale can't make a bad decision. Ono, I think if he is able to figure out folk style in a timely manner, becomes a national title contender. Braden Davis just finished 5th. I don't want people to forget that Braden Davis isn't a slouch at 133, just took 5th at NCAAs. He's only going to get better here, but Penn State has its options. 133, they could have Ono, they could have Davis. Like I said, heck, they could have Marcus Blaze wrestle in that spot, and you're getting either a fringe NCAA title contender or a serious one. I think Ono and Blaze's chances are better. Again, if Ono can make sure that he has everything ready to go in folk style. Aaron Nagao's not a bad wrestler either. I don't want to think that he's an afterthought in this case, but in the comparison of what the competition is in-house at Penn State, it's really tough to say with the way that Davis is getting better and what Nagao is coming back from a serious surgery that I don't know the full details, but to miss this season. All we know from Cale is that it was a serious procedure. I think 133 is going to be Ono's spot, but we will see in due time if they go to and Davis can take a red shirt as well. But that's why 141 gets interesting too, because it becomes a domino effect. So it's Ono, Davis, Nagao at 133, maybe even Blaze. I think 141 is Marcus Blaze. Maybe you bump up Davis to 141 if you happen to not redshirt him. any of Blaze, Davis, and Ono, I don't think Nagao competes at 141. It's really those four wrestlers for those two spots, for those two vacancies. 133, I think it's Ono. 141, I think it's Blaze. I mean, Blaze is one of the projected favorites at the senior level for the U.S. Open that's coming up here. Marcus Blaze isn't just your average incoming freshman. He and PJ Duke rotate back and forth between 1A and 1B for this class of 2025 in the national pound for pound rankings. So if Ono and Blaze come in and start right away as your true freshman at 133, 141, Penn State's not making the wrong decision here. If Davis happens to bulk up, because Davis was cutting weight for 125, 133 seemed to settle in. That seemed like a fairly good weight class, but I've heard that, hey, Davis could eventually bump up to 141 as well if the opportunity is there. Ono has said before that he can wrestle all the way, cut down all the way to 125 and wrestle all the way up to 141. He did joke and say that he could compete at the equivalent of 157, but I do think that Ono does have that range where he can wrestle at 25, 33, or 41 in this case. Like I said, Penn State does not have a wrong decision to make. Anything that they go with, if it's Davis and Ono, if it's Blaze and Ono and Blaze, do you get my point? And again, even Aaron Nagao, when he was at the peak with his health, he was finishing as an All-American. So I don't want to forget about Aaron Nagao just because, but Marcus Blaze, where Braden Davis is progressing, and then bringing in Ono, it really is it's difficult to not look past Nagao in this case, but he's still here for the time being. 184, I think is not as clear as people might think it is. Because yes, Zach Ryder leaves, and that conversation would have been a lot more interesting with Zach Ryder in the fold, but now he's at Oklahoma State. Rocco Welsh doesn't walk in with a one-way ticket to the starting spot at 184, and let me explain why. It's because of the Josh Barr factor. Josh Barr could definitely cut down to 184. That is his natural weight class. That is where he is going to compete relatively in freestyle, closer to that weight class, I should say. 184 was supposed to be Josh Barr's, but Carter Starachi bumps up, so Barr does what's best for the team, wrestles all the way up to 197, and it just shows how good, how talented Josh Barr is to move up 13 pounds, wrestle at 197, and be an NCAA runner-up as a first-year starter after the redshirt season. That's why it's not a guarantee that Ono and Blaze are in the lineup, even though I think they should be considered the favorites in this case. They could take a red shirt and then Penn State unleashes them with 4 full years of eligibility, with giving that one extra year of development there for them. But Barr could absolutely cut down to 184. Then it creates a competition between himself and Rocco Welsh. And who are you choosing? I got to say it's Josh Barr. I know that Rocco Welsh was brought in with the intent of, because that's what everyone says, he's not going to ride the bench. There's no way that he rides the bench. Well, 184 just isn't as clear as you think it would. I know some people are going to disagree with me and say that a Barr is not going to cut, that he's not going to move down to 184. He doesn't have to. It's going to be what the best decision is. There isn't a wrong choice here. And that's what I'm going to explain with 197, because I don't think enough people are giving credit to Connor Mirasola and that he's ready to take over in that spot. We'll talk about it more coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You'll have endless entertainment. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And you get affordable and portable gaming. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your games wherever you plug in. Head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K, the Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. Again, that is Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Connor Mirasola becomes the wild card here at 197. If he is ready, and I happen to think that he is. We'll talk about heavyweight as well and the domino effect that is going to be created by Connor Mirasola inserting himself into the starting lineup at 197. There's really no other options for him. He doesn't cut to 184. He's not going to bump up to heavyweight. His twin brother is there. 197, if and when Connor Mirasola is ready to go and he takes over that starting spot, well, that creates flexibility for Penn State to move Josh Barr back down. That was simply, hey, Barr was going to move up because you weren't going to be Carter Starachi at 184 for the starting spot. So bump him up to 97, create a competition with a younger version of Connor Mirasola. Lucas Cochran, who's still in the mat room as well at Penn State, he's forgotten about it in this case. But now you have a similar setup again where it's a better version of Connor Mirasola. Lucas Cochran is still there. He is not a bad wrestler. He is an All-America caliber wrestler. I won't go as far to say national title contender. And we know that Barr is a national title contender at 197. But I do think he is better suited at 184 since that is closer to his natural weight class. That was the class that he was brought in for. Well, Starachi bumps up from 74 to 84. You're not beating Starachi in a head-to-head matchup. Nobody beat Starachi in those head-to-head matchups outside of Penn State. So Starachi's gone. It opens up at 84. What's interesting about Rocco Welsh, though, is Rocco Welsh did say that he was going to compete at 84 this season for Penn State, but he's still training at 79 kilos, which is roughly the equivalent of 174 and a half pounds. So Welsh is competing and training still at what is more of his natural weight class, which is around 174. So 174 gets brought into the conversation too. There's all these side competitions. There isn't a direct head-to-head battle, if you will, because say that Connor Mirasola is ready to go at 197. Barr moves down to 184. Then it's Josh Barr versus Rocco Welsh. Let's say Josh Barr wins at 184. And it's crazy to think that guys that are national title contenders, that they should have a guaranteed spot in the lineup. No, there's still this ongoing competition. And then Rocco Welsh comes in. Now, I think Barr has the advantage because he's been there. Rocco Welsh is entering the room and is going to have to fight for his spot. So Barr has a leg up. What does Welsh do if he's not the guy at 184? Well, does that create somewhat of a competition at 174 with Levi Haynes? Levi Haynes has one. He could technically redshirt, but going into his true senior season, I can't believe that Levi Haynes' career has flown by that fast for Penn State. It's crazy to think to me. I imagine some of you out there absolutely agree as well. But then do you have a battle at 174 with Levi Haynes and Rocco Welsh? And that's Rocco Welsh's natural weight class. It sounds crazy, but this is the luxury that Penn State has. That's why I say there is no wrong choice. It also points to the depth that if somebody happens to get hurt, you want somebody to take a red shirt, somebody volunteers to take a red shirt to train or just to focus on something else. It's what the wrestlers ultimately want to do here. So Levi Haynes has that option. Going back to Braden Davis or Ono or Blaze, you get my point here, is that most of them can take that red shirt. Okay, Barr and the Mirasola twins can't do that again here, but Levi Haynes has that option, for example, if Penn State wants to do that. So you could have a lineup where it's Welsh at 74, Barr at 84, Mirasola at 97 in heavyweight. And heavyweight's pretty cut and dry. I think heavyweight's going to be Cael Mirasola because, well, A, there's no other options, but B, Penn State's not looking for another heavyweight. Penn State seems confident that Cael Mirasola is ready to take over at heavyweight. I think there's that confidence as well for Connor Mirasola. Connor just won a Pan American championship over in Mexico just recently. So did Levi Haynes, so did Luke Lilladall, but Connor Mirasola and his twin brother Cole, for that matter, were top 10 recruits in the nation for a reason, pound for pound. Not just that their respective weight class, in the country overall. So the Mirasola twins should not be forgotten about either. It's just that you can't make a bad decision. So whether it's Ono, it goes back to my point, whether it's Ono at 33, or it's Braden Davis, or it's Blaze, and then it's Ono. Get what I'm saying? Rocco Welsh at 74, Barr at 84, Mirasola, or if Connor Mirasola is not ready at 97, because I think that's what most people are going to side with. And then you go with Haynes, Welsh, and Barr again at 97. Is that the wrong answer too? Is that the wrong answer in itself? No, it is not. It is not incorrect. So Cael Sanderson has so many options here that he can go with, and it's correct. Connor Mirasola is the only one that really isn't debatable as far as, hey, there's competition here. He's going to be pushed. He's the only heavyweight. And I think that's for a reason. Penn State could have gone and planned differently if they thought otherwise, and they've elected not to. So Connor Mirasola is the heavyweight, and I think he's ready to go. Is he going to be a national title contender right out of the gate? Maybe not necessarily, but I think he's right in that All-America conversation, and he's only going to get better. He's only going to get stronger and continue to get adjusted like Greg Kirkfleet did. But heavyweight gets a complete makeover. It looks completely different. The class is wide open, so there is absolutely no reason that Connor Mirasola can't be in that upper echelon of this weight class. Just to go through a little rapid fire with the ones that have more certainty, but just to speak to the depth of these weight classes. So Shane Van Ness at 149, we assume that, we know that. 157, Tyler Casack returns. But then you add PJ Duke into this room. Don't forget about Joe Seeley, who was the number 2 overall pound-for-pound recruit in the class of 2024, along interchangeable with Luke Lilladall. Luke Lilladall's another certainty at 125. We know about the returning NCAA champ at 165 with Mitchell Messenbrink. So those are the weight classes that have a good amount of certainty. But now you just bring in PJ Duke. You have Joe Seeley that's still there. Asher Cunningham, William Hankel, these guys that are in these middle upper that start to go into these upper weights where the competition is just going to get better. And it shows the depth that if somebody goes down to injury, Penn State can do this shuffling and the lineup's not going to miss a beat. It's, maybe that's for heavyweight. Okay. You have that issue there because you don't have depth behind Cole Mirasola. That's the only spot. But everywhere else, you have a national title contender, and then somebody to back them up that is going to be on the podium if they were at any other program in the starting lineup, which is really crazy to think there. Same thing with 125. Nate Desmond comes in as a consensus top 30 recruit in the entire nation, pound for pound. Luke Lilladall isn't going to be at 125 forever. Eventually, Nate Desmond's going to take over. It just speaks to the depth. It just speaks to the quality, the amount of the amount of quality wrestlers at Penn State right at this given time, and that you can't go wrong with any of them. So Tyler Casack has a red shirt on the table. Joe Seeley, plug and play. You start him. PJ Duke, same thing. And there's not going to be much that is different between any of it. It's just something I want to point out. Who knows? Maybe there's a competition at 157. I would imagine Casack's still the guy, right? But it just gets so intriguing with how talented PJ Duke is. Joe Seeley, it's a problem that Penn State has, and I think they like having this kind of problem here. I do want to go back to 2009 when Cael Sanderson took over as Penn State's wrestling head coach. The accomplishments that he's had along the way, we'll talk about those to wrap up the show coming up next here. April 17th, 2009, the day that changed Penn State wrestling, as Cael Sanderson was hired. And ever since then, I just want to rattle off some of these accolades here that I listed out on X, but really just reading it back through and thinking about it. in these 16 years, Penn State and Cael Sanderson together have won 12 NCAA titles. 3 of them have been four-peats. They've been in these consecutive stretches where they've won 4 NCAA titles consecutively 3 separate times. And then you set the NCAA tournament not once but twice for the most team points scored. Now it's at 177. Before that, it was 172.5. They broke it in back-to-back years. You also set the NCAA tournament record. This one will be tougher to break, but the 100-point margin of victory from first to second place, that was done in the 2024 postseason. 40 individual NCAA champions, also tying the record for 5 individual NCAA champions in one season. Coached the only 5-time NCAA individual champion himself in Carter Starace, and also coached the only pair of, at the time, 4-time NCAA champions with Carter Starace and Aaron Brooks. 6 Hodge Trophy winners at Penn State under Cael Sanderson's direction. 101 All-Americans. Speaking of All-Americans, the second team ever to tie the record. You can't have more than 10 All-Americans, but you tie the record for most All-Americans in a season, which is 10. Minnesota in 2001 was the only team that did it. Penn State just did it here in 2025. 9 Big Ten tournament titles, 11 Big Ten regular season titles, 69 individual Big Ten champions, 9 undefeated teams, and then the dual meets. 71 consecutive dual meet victories. That is an active streak, and that's going to carry over, and they're looking to break Oklahoma State's record. It's 77. They got to get to 78, so you got to win 7 more in a row. 200-plus dual meet victories at Penn State for Cael Sanderson, 100 Big Ten dual meet wins overall. So 200 overall, non-conference, in conference, 100 conference dual meet wins, and then being selected as the coach of the year 6 times, most recently here in 2025. And they're not slowing down anytime soon. They are not stopping anytime soon. Cael Sanderson is still in the prime of his coaching career. It's not like he is getting into a grandfather status where, hey, there's an end to this. We kind of see that it's slowing down, and it's not. Penn State had put back-to-back top recruiting classes in 2024 and 2025, which is why the lineup is where it is. That you have a title contender all the way from 125 to heavyweight is not maybe so much of a guarantee or so much of a certainty. But once again, all the way, all 10 spots have a solid starter, somebody that you expect to finish on the podium no matter what. And now you've created all this depth behind them. Despite NIL, despite the transfer portal, you have created somehow a stronger, deeper mat room. Cael Sanderson continues to push the bar, continues to shatter the expectations, and it really is something. It's something to behold. It really is. So April 17th, 2009, recognize it every year. It should be a holiday at this point in time for Penn State fans, because it really is. This isn't over 30, 40 years. This is in 16. Penn State and Cael Sanderson are winning NCAA titles 75% of the time in these 16 years. 12 of the last 14, and then 16 overall, because I guess a little bit of a bumpy start when you compare it to the rest of the accolades there. But that's a 75% hit rate on championships. I respect what Oklahoma State's trying to do to get back into it. Hey, Iowa's been on a little bit of a hot recruiting streak, if I'm being honest. Not just the transfer portal, but in high school recruiting as well. So other programs are trying to get into the fight. Same thing with Nebraska. But even still, those teams get closer, they get better, and somehow Penn State is still able to pull further away under the direction of Cael Sanderson. So Penn State is not going anywhere. They are not slowing down. I expect them to win team titles in 26, 27, because they continue to just strengthen this nucleus. When you think, okay, well, Starace's moving on, Bo Bartlett's moving on, Greg Kirkfleet's moving on, welcome in Marcus Blaze, welcome in Masanosuke Ono, welcome in the Mirasola twins. And then after that, okay, well, eventually Levi Haynes is going to graduate. Okay, well, at some point in time, Joe Seeley's going to get into the lineup, right? PJ Duke. You have Asher Cunningham and William Hankel as top 20 recruits in their own right at those weight classes. I know it's such a logjam, but the best guy's going to emerge. Penn State has numerous options. They can't go wrong with anybody. So the next 3 to 4 years still have Penn State at the top. I think Oklahoma State can make it maybe interesting in 28, 29. Iowa still will be around. I will be around. I think Nebraska's doing. I think Nebraska's really, they have a strong core as well, returning 8 of 10 starters for next season. But they're not putting together top tier recruiting classes the way that Penn State has. So it is going to continue to be Penn State dominating at the top until further notice. And Cael Sanderson's been the leader every step of the way, leading by example. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Predictions, analysis for this upcoming lineup. This is a very early preview, of course. So things could still change. Transfer portal still open, but we'll get a better idea as things continue to unfold. Long ways away, but I think the conversation is interesting to have right now. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have any questions you would like me to answer for an upcoming podcast, submit those in as well. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. And happy Easter to each and every one of you who celebrate. And I'll talk to you again very soon here on another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, got to check out Locked On NFL Draft with hosts Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez as your favorite collegiate players, your favorite former Penn State Nittany Lions. Get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, latest rumors, news every single day. You can find Locked On NFL Draft available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day.